Have you ever had one of those big projects that you start but then abandon soon after because it seems overwhelming? This living room was that for me, but I'm going to walk you through everything I did and what I learned along the way in order to help you if you decide to tackle a similar project. And together, these projects have completely transformed my living space. Let's get started. Step 1 was to get rid of this ugly tile and this oddly large and high-placed mantle. To remove the tile, I'm using what's called a rotary hammer drill. You can rent these from one of the big box stores, as it's not a tool that most use that often. It made quick work of popping off these tiles, and I wasn't concerned about damaging the drywall since it will be replaced with cement board. The mantle was tricky to get off, and I essentially had to rip it apart and pry it off the wall. It was super ugly, so I wasn't too worried about saving it. Next, I took off the glass doors, and initially I wasn't sure if I was going to save these and reinstall them, but I ended up just leaving them off. And once the trim was off, I could start cutting the cement board to size. You can find these cement board panels at the big box stores, and they come in 2x4 foot sheets. Cement board is more suited for fireplace surrounds because it does a better job of dissipating any heat from a fire versus just using drywall. I marked out my cut lines, and then I just used a utility knife to score the front side. These panels have a string mesh that you first score and cut through, and then you can break it along that score line. Cut through the mesh on the second side, and that's all there is to it. With the cement board done, I could focus on cutting the steel plate panels. Now, I'm using 14 gauge plate steel for the fireplace because it's sturdy but not overly heavy. And I had the steel yard cut these 4x8 sheets into a more manageable size that allowed me to get the 11 panels I needed in the most efficient way possible. The amount of plate steel and measurements will vary for each home and specific fireplace, so I won't waste your time going over every dimension needed for mine. To cut these panels, I'm using this steel cutting circular saw. You can find a saw like this, or just use a metal cutting blade on your existing circular saw, and I'll leave a link for this one and all the other materials I use down in the description below. This was a much faster method, and I got cleaner cuts than using an angle grinder with a cutoff disc, but that is also an option if that's what you have access to. I wanted these steel panels to have a consistent blackened patina, so I'm using this Birchwood Casey Presto Blackener. First I tried stripping the metal with this stripping wheel, but it didn't come close to getting the job done. I resorted to using equal parts water and muriatic acid to strip off the scale before adding patina, and this worked like a dream. I cleaned the steel with a degreaser before spraying on the Presto Blackener, and as you can see, the patina reacts almost instantly, and I let the patina continue to react with the steel for about 3 minutes before I came back and neutralized it with a mixture of baking soda and water before sponging off the film that it leaves behind. When this was all done, I added a coat of paste wax, then buffed it in, and this is where you see that rich blackened color really come out. It also has sort of a texture to it, which matches that industrial look that I'm aiming for. Now I can start attaching all these panels, and I'm doing this using some Liquid Nails Fuse-It construction adhesive and some strategically placed clamps. The bigger upper panel was the most difficult of all of them to hang, so I did it first, and it was important to get it straight and level. Getting this one level helps ensure that all the other panels afterwards will be straight as well. I drilled some holes into the sidewall and added clamps, and this helped pull in the bottom of the panel, and you'll see me employ this technique a bunch while hanging these panels. I had to leave an access panel to light the pilot, so I spray painted the surrounding area that will be visible when the panel is removed with some black spray paint. Next, I hung the 2 side panels, which overlap the firebox and create new visual lines for the fireplace. They also help hide the steel curtain that I decided to leave in place. This access panel is just held in place with a few rare earth magnets. I added 2 to the far ends, and then I just stacked some of these larger, more powerful magnets inside the access panel sidewalls, and this grabs the panel enough to firmly hold it in place, but not so much that the panel bows when removing. For the side panel that covers the gas key and switch, I measured the precise location of how they relate to the steel panel, and then drilled these out with an 1.25" carbide hole saw. Next, I fabricated a new switch plate, but while I'm showing you how I'm enhancing my living space, let me tell you how I recently enhanced the air I breathe in my home with the help of this video sponsor, FilterBuy. Now, are you like me? Have you forgotten to change your air filters in an embarrassing amount of time? With FilterBuy, you never have to think about ordering filters again when you sign up for their subscription service, which also saves you 5%. Each filter is made right here in the USA by a family-owned business in a factory in Alabama that used to make tank parts. They have over 600 size options and can custom make sizes, so they are guaranteed to have what you need, whether it's for a single family home or for a small business. Changing your air filters regularly can extend the life of your HVAC system and save you thousands. All orders ship for free within 24 hours, so check out the FilterBuy link that's down in the description below. They have different MERV ratings to fit your exact needs, and when they show up, they're simply packaged and ready to install right away. Okay, thanks FilterBuy. Now back to the build, and you've heard me talk about my friends at Vintage Reclaimed Lumber here in Oklahoma City before, and that's where I got this beautiful walnut live edge mantle that was already cut as a mantelpiece. This mantle is absolutely gorgeous and perfect for my space, so thanks VRL, and make sure to check them out if you're in the area. Now the first step was to mark the location of these 3/4 inch shelf pins I got from VRL as well, and I measured the distance from center to center to transfer to the fireplace inside. Using a laser level, I set the position of the shelf pins before pre-drilling and securing them with 3-inch long screws. I used some blue tape here to precisely mark out the centers of the shelf pins where they were mounted. Next, I cut the mantle to final length and then used that blue tape with the pin locations to mark out where I needed to drill. I picked up a cheap hammer drill and an auger bit, and you really need something like this to drill a hole this wide 7 inches deep into some solid hardwood. The auger bit will just pull itself into the wood, so the main thing you have to do is keep everything straight and level and let the drill and the bit do its work. Luckily, having a bit of slop in your drilled holes helps the mantle go on easier, so I reamed the holes out to be just a tad bigger. Next, I came back with a router and mortised in a pocket for the back of the shelf pin that allows this mantle to sit flush up against the wall. Back to the steel panels, I installed the remaining side panels using more fused adhesive and some clamps to hold it in place. This stuff sets fairly quickly, and some strategically placed blue tape works well in spots you can't get a clamp. Next, I measured for the 1.5" angle iron I'm using to trim out the edges. I cut these to size and applied the same Presto Black patina just as I did to the panels. I had to cut the access panel to fit precisely inside the angle iron trim so it could still be removed when needed. I came back and reattached these offcuts to create a more seamless transition. The trim gets installed with more fused adhesive and some blue tape to hold everything in place. Back to the mantle, I sanded it up to 220 grit and removed the finish that was on it when it was in the VRL showroom. I rounded over the sides and edges with my sander and then added 2 coats of this Maker brand simple finish. Now it's time to hang this mantle, and first I applied a small amount of fuse it in a few places. I also cut some 2x4s to brace the mantle and keep it level while the adhesive dried. I added a mixture of black and clear fiberglass to the firebox and installed the switch plate. With that, this fireplace makeover was done, and as you can see, the wood wall went up nicely as well. I'll cover that in the next video, so make sure you don't miss that one. This living room makeover has completely transformed this space from something that was just drab and boring to something exceptionally beautiful that I really enjoy and that makes me want to spend time in my living room. And the best part, it's all done with techniques that anyone can do. I want to thank everyone for checking this one out, and I'd also like to thank my Patreon supporters, the Wood Pastor and Jenny and Davis, with an extra special thanks to my top patrons, Matt Varughese, David Britton, and Doyle Deal. To find out how you can support the show, there's information down below. Okay, thanks everyone. Again, thank you so much for watching, and make sure you check out the next video where I turn my old fence into this whitewashed shiplap wood wall.